The sun shines bright on the Darlington, South Carolina Raceway for the 1969 running of the Rebel 400. We're in the heart of the tobacco and peanut growing country, some 90 miles southeast of Charlotte, North Carolina. This is the track they call the granddaddy of the super stock speedways, the first to move the sport into the big time. Good afternoon. I'm Jim McKay speaking to you from the actual racing surface here at Darlington. 36 cars will be going under perfect weather conditions this afternoon. On the pole will be Cale Yarborough. He qualified at a speed of more than 152 miles an hour. And right next to him will be this car, the familiar number 43 of Richard Petty. Now, this is a new Darlington track this year. It's been resurfaced, and there's a brand new trouble spot, one that Richard Petty, among others, has already visited, as you can see. Our colleague Chris Economaki, the editor of National Speed Sport News, is over there right now. Let's go to Chris.
Right, Jim. Almost to a man, drivers in today's field are concerned about turn 4. It's been banked and recontoured and made the track some 2.5 to 3 miles an hour faster. Part of the change is a new cement retaining wall extension at the head of the home stretch. And as you can see, the drivers have been banging it during practice. Here's the old wall, and here, for all to see, is a sample of Petty Blue, the familiar blue color on car number 43, driven by Richard Petty. This could well be the trouble spot in today's Rebel 400.
Okay, Chris. Well, this won't be the only event, as usual, that you'll be seeing on Wide World of Sports this afternoon. We'll also be going to Madison Square Garden in New York for roller skating, a very interesting and beautiful show, the World Gold Skate Classic, and track and field from Ames, Iowa, where you'll see Jim Ryan in one of his final collegiate appearances, the great world record holder in the mile and half mile, appearing in the Big 8 Championships at Ames, Iowa. The driver's just about ready to get into their cars now. That's Cale Yarborough on the left with Richard Petty. These are the moments of real tension just before the race begins. Let's go to Chris again now with driver Paul Goldsmith.
Paul, everyone seems to be talking about the new track and the problems that it creates. Is it going to be a track that takes horsepower to win, or is handling going to be more important?
I believe the handling today, Chris. This track has always been a fascinating problem, you might say, and they have bettered the track. It's a lot smoother. The turn is a lot wider here in the 3 and a 4 turn, although coming off of 4, I think you will see some action. I'm quite sure of that.
What do you mean by action, Paul?
Well, the radius of the turn there sharpens up a little bit, and it puts the cars over towards the wall, and whether there's room for 2 cars coming off there or not fast, I'm not sure yet. I just doubt it.
We've had it practice for 4 days. Wouldn't you think this question would have been answered by now?
Well, it's answered in my mind. There's not room for 2. Now, if there's 2 coming through there, that's another story.
Now the drivers starting into their cars. There's the fastest qualifier, Cale Yarborough, who is elected to start on the outside of the first row, although he won the inside or pole position. Right next to him will be the number 2 qualifier, Richard Petty, in his familiar blue car, number 43. Both of these are from the Ford Motor Company, a Mercury for Yarborough, a Ford for Petty. And this is Leroy Yarborough starting in the second row in his 1969 Mercury. Here we have Paul Goldsmith into his car now in the 1969 Dodge that qualified at better than 150 miles an hour. And last year's NASCAR champion, David Pearson of Spartanburg, South Carolina, in the 1969 Ford. Again, let's go back to Chris Economaki. This time he's going to have a word with a car owner with a new driver.
One of the most respected car owners in NASCAR stock car racing is Cotton Owens, a former driver. Cotton, the attention always seems to be focused on the drivers, but people who know the sport know that the car owner is an important man. You have undergone a change in drivers. What does this mean to a car owner?
Well, it means that you got to get accustomed to the type of driving your driver is going to do for you, and more or less get all your pit signals straightened out to keep him informed of where he's at and just what you're going to do next on your next pit stop. So it's quite a little bit of figuring to do when you actually take on a guy that, you haven't been working with.
The word communication keeps appearing in the newspaper stories. What does this really mean between owner and driver?
Well, he has got to let you know what the car is doing if you're going to make a chassis adjustment, and also when your next pit stop is coming up and just what you can do on this particular stop. Like if he needs a little bit of wedge, he can let you know and get your signals squared away and take it from there.
Owner Cotton Owens, who lost driver Charlie Glotzback but gained Buddy Baker. He'll be in number 6 as the cars get underway now. The pace car out in front of them. Number 43, remember the blue car there, is Richard Petty, and on the outside, number 21 is Cale Yarborough. In the next row, 99 is Paul Goldsmith, the orange car. The white car, Leroy Yarborough. That was number 98. Number 6 is Buddy Baker, the Cotton Owens car. Number 17 is David Pearson. 22 on the outside is Bobby Allison, and on the inside, right beside him, was his brother, Donnie. Back in a minute on the start of the race. This should be the final pace lap. The starter is figuring the green flag. Looks like he's going to give it to him this time. They're well lined up. Remember, on the first row, we have Cale Yarborough in car number 21. That's the white one on the wall. Next in, number 43 is Richard Petty, and they're going to get it all right. Here they come, the green flag out, and the race is underway. And Chris, look at them go into that first turn.
Boy, it's always exciting, even though there is 291 laps to go on this mile and 3/8 track. And Petty grabs it from down below. He outfoxed Cale.
So Cale took the outside position intentionally, thinking it would be better to start up there, but it didn't work out. However, he's just a couple of feet behind Richard Petty as this crowd of more than 40,000 really begins with the rebel yells.
Heading for turn 4 now.
The first time in racing that they've been through that new turn 4, and everybody got through it safely and in single file, which should be significant. Richard Petty, the leader, in car number 43. 21 is Cale Yarborough. Back here, number 98 is Leroy Yarborough. 27, moving up very fast, is Donnie Allison, who was back around 7th or 8th place on the start. He's really gone fast.
Buddy Baker's up there in 3rd place, too. Look here.
There's Cale Yarborough taking the lead between turns 3 and 4, and following him comes Buddy Baker in car number 6, also just squeezing in ahead of Richard Petty. So now it's Cale Yarborough in the lead, Buddy Baker 2nd, and Richard Petty 3rd.
On the old Darlington track, Jim, that could have never happened. They had to line up single file going in and stay single file throughout those 2 turns.
And there we had Donnie Allison. We got a glimpse of him in car number 27, pushing for 3rd place at the moment. Leader still, however, Cale Yarborough from nearby Timmonsville, South Carolina. Chris talked to him briefly before the race got underway.
Cale, you're starting on the pole. Is that the best place, or would you rather be outside front row today?
Well, I'm going to move outside front row, Chris, when the race starts. I think this is the best place to be, especially on a racetrack like this.
What if Richard Petty has other ideas?
Well, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens then. I think the man that gets the break coming off the 4th turn at the start of the race will lead the first lap anyway, and it's going to be pretty hard to pass here today. It should be quite a show.
If the two of you get to the 4th turn side by side, with you on the inside and Richard on the outside, who do you think will give?
Well, that early in the race, if it comes down to somebody having to give and he doesn't want to give, I'll give that early in the race. They don't pay any money on that first lap. It's the last one that pays.
So you see, like most great race drivers, before the race, Cale Yarborough indicated he would drive with great caution in the early stages of the race, and then immediately went out and drove it just as fast as he could. Fast enough to be the leader right now in car number 21. Buddy Baker, remember, in car number 6, is in 2nd place at the moment.
We've got a Mercury leading and a Dodge 2nd, and that keeps the factories pretty happy.
Right, and we'll be back in a minute for more racing. Here come the leaders in the early stages of the Rebel 400 at the Darlington Raceway in South Carolina. Is Cale Yarborough out in front. Right on his rear bumper is Buddy Baker in car number 6, and right behind him is Donnie Allison, who started at 7th place and is now moving into 2nd in car number 27, ahead of Buddy Baker. A tremendous charge by Donnie, the brother of Bobby Allison, both of them from Hueytown, Alabama.
Donnie has done a great job, Jim. He's back in a race car after 6 weeks with a bout of hepatitis, and he had a bad crash in this car during practice.
And now he has taken the lead from Cale Yarborough. 27, red car, now leading car number 21, which is Cale Yarborough. And in 3rd place, Buddy Baker in car number 6, the Cotton Owens car. There's Richard Petty in 4th place, in car number 43. Then we have Paul Goldsmith in car number 99 and Bobby Allison in that gold and red car number 22. And just in front of them, Leroy Yarborough in that white car, that's number 98.
They're traveling at close to 150 miles an hour in this heavy traffic, Jim. It's really remarkable.
The Allison brothers both doing pretty well at this point. There's the leader, Donnie Allison, in a Ford. In 2nd place is a Mercury, and in 3rd place, a Dodge. Pretty well split up among the manufacturers right now.
They seem to have that 4th turn pretty well figured out, Jim. Nobody's touched the wall yet.
And there is Cale passing Donnie Allison, who appears to be slowing down. It didn't look so much like a burst of speed by Cale as a slowing down by Donnie. See what's going to happen here. The third place car is still Buddy Baker, and there is Donnie Allison. Looks like he's going to have to come into the pits. That leaves Cale Yarborough a definite leader. Let's listen to Cale's thoughts about this new Darlington track.
Well, it's a better racetrack than what it has been. It's got a new surface on it, and the new surface makes your car stick better. And before, when we were running this racetrack, you had to let the car kind of drive you. But now you got a little more control of the car, and you kind of drive it. So it makes a better racetrack out of it.
Now back on the circuit, the racing continues. Moving down is Paul Goldsmith. He nicked 2 cars on the way through, but he did make it through. The race goes on, and we'll be back here in Darlington for a lot more of it. The standings right now, Cale Yarborough the leader, Buddy Baker second, and Richard Petty third. Now on to Madison Square Garden in New York for the World Gold Skate Classic and Bud Palmer. We're back again at the Darlington Raceway in South Carolina, where car number 43, Richard Petty, has taken the lead in the Rebel 400. In fact, there's only one other car on the same lap with Richard right now. That's car number 22, driven by Bobby Allison. In the lead car, Petty is driving a Ford. In second place, Allison is in a Dodge. And there's the Petty pit crew, getting ready for a quick change because he's pitting on the green flag. This means that every second he is in the pits, he is losing to the other cars on the course. In fact, should Allison be able to make a complete lap while Richard is still in the pits, Bobby Allison will be the new leader. It was his brother Donnie who led earlier in the race.
We've had tire problems, Jim. As you can see, Petty's getting tires changed on both sides.
And there goes Bobby Allison in number 22, this gold and red car, taking the lead. And now Richard Petty streaking out of the pits, but he has lost first place. Bobby Allison, number 22, is now the leader. Richard Petty, number 43, is in second place. Leroy Yarborough, a lap behind, in car number 98 is third. Cale Yarborough, number 21, is 2 laps behind, as is number 17, David Pearson. Those are, however, the leaders, and there's a blown engine. Neil Castle's in car number 3, the car that Buddy Baker used to drive, is going to be out of it. That means a yellow flag, Chris.
That's right. Buddy Baker himself went out a few moments ago with oil pressure problems in the Cotton Owens Dodge. And here comes the business for the pit crews.
Okay, well, now remember that Richard Petty took his pit stop on the green flag. As we said, that cost him valuable seconds all the time he was in there. On the yellow flag, however, they'll be retaining their position in the race, and that's a break for Bobby Allison in car number 22. They're all in there right now.
This is the first yellow flag of the race, Jim, and it's quite remarkable with the heavy traffic and the new surface and that tricky fourth turn.
It certainly is. And you see the pit crews, the backs of them, mere blurs of action. There's Leroy Yarborough, and here is the Bobby Allison car, number 22. That's the leader, getting ready to go back on the track. Inside tires, Chris.
A lot of tires are being changed here today, Jim. Earlier, under the green flag, both Cale Yarborough and David Pearson had to stop because of blistered tires, and that's why they're laps behind now.
Okay, and we'll be back in a minute with more racing action at Darlington. Part of the crowd of 40,000 enjoying a little picnicking with the yellow flag still out here at Darlington, but it won't be for long. They're going to get the green, and there they go. And the leader in the race, remember, is car number 22, driven by Bobby Allison. In second place, and almost a lap behind him now, is Leroy Yarborough, car number 98, and in third place is Richard Petty, number 43. They are the only 3 cars still on the same lap.
Jim, just before the yellow flag wave, the leader's speed was a record 143.603 miles an hour, so we're seeing a fast one today.
Wonder if it could be that Richard Petty's getting a little tired. He indicated he might when you talked to him before the race today, Chris.
Richard, I noticed you just stepping out of the infirmary moments before the race. For what reason?
Well, I got my ribs hurt last week at Asheville-Weaverville when I run into the wall, and they taped them up and gave me a shot in there just to make sure they weren't going to hurt me during the race.
What about your hand here?
Well, I stove it up a little bit, too, and I figured used to play football, and they always wrapped them up and made them feel good. I figured I'd just do that, too.
Richard, we've got a new racetrack here, and there's some blue paint on the new fourth turn wall from your car. Is that the track or the car?
Well, I think it was more or less both of us at that particular time. I was out, I'd been running pretty good, and I guess I just more or less got to loafing a little bit, and I come off a number 4 corner wrong, and it just threw me right in the wall.
What about the race today? Is that going to be a tough spot for you?
Well, I don't know. I think it'll be a pretty tough spot for everybody, but I think, too, that everybody will be watching it pretty close, so if there's any excitement, though, it should probably come up happening there.
We hope you're not a part of it.
Thank you.
And at this moment on the racetrack, Richard has caught a little traffic in his blue car number 43 as they come out of that fourth turn and over the bump. Real action in there as he tries to pass other cars. He's hit David Pearson. but both of them okay, apparently. But as that happens, watch the gold car number 22 up high. That's Bobby Allison putting a lap on Richard Petty. Petty now a full lap behind. Leroy Yarborough's in second place and on the same lap with the leader. We'll be back for the finish right now to Bill Fleming in Ames, Iowa at the Big 8 Track and Field Championships. Again, we're back at Darlington, South Carolina. That car, number 22, is the leader, Bobby Allison, in his Dodge. In second place, number 98 is Leroy Yarborough. However, he is one lap behind. And still further back, 21 is Cale Yarborough, 99 Paul Goldsmith, and into the pits yet again is Richard Petty in his car number 43. He had led in this race, but he's been dropping back steadily. There is the leader, Bobby Allison, and Petty is getting out of the car. There's a look at Leroy Yarborough, car number 98, in second place, but a lap behind. And Cale Yarborough, number 21, another lap back. And now, Donnie Allison has gotten in the car to replace Richard Petty. Now, Donnie led this race earlier, blew an engine, and now is going back, and there's a crash on the track. It's David Pearson and 76, that's Ben Arnold. It was Arnold hitting the pit wall. And I'll tell you, there were a few people scurrying around here. Chris talked to David Pearson before the race.
They say that the fourth turn is going to be a trouble spot once traffic develops. Do you agree?
I would say so if two cars try to come off the corner side by side off four, because it's still just about like it was before. You have to run the track just like you did before. And I would say you'd have a little trouble if two come off the corner together.
There's a lot of paint on the wall up there, blue and red and so forth, and that's from one car going through by itself.
Well, there are a few having a little trouble coming off four. It looks like you can get through there a lot faster than you can, and I think the guys just get over anxious and try to come through a little bit quicker and scrub the wall a little bit.
Well, the yellow flag is out at Darlington for only the second time in this race, and here's a replay of that crash. There you see Arnold going into the wall, David Pearson continuing on his way with a badly battered left front fender.
That's going to have to be cut away, Jim, before he can get any speed out of that number 17.
Okay, well, there is the leader in the pits under the yellow flag. That's Bobby Allison of Hueytown, Alabama, in his Dodge.
His brother Donnie is now in the Petty car out on the track, Jim.
And what is the word that you get on that, Chris?
Richard's ribs were bothering him, and he just felt that it would be better to give Donnie a chance. Donnie's been standing by in the pits waiting.
Okay, well, there goes Bobby Allison, the leader, back out on the race course. We're moving into the closing laps of the Rebel 400 at Darlington Raceway in South Carolina with Bobby Allison in his number 22 Dodge, a clear leader by more than a lap, and there he goes over number 98, Leroy Yarborough, who's in second place. Right now, let's listen to the tape comments of Leroy as his car takes a lap.
Well, it gets up to about 7,000, 7,100 down the front straightaway here, and get right up next to the wall, going to the number one corner to make the corner as sweeping as possible without bogging the car down. And use very little brake. Sometimes you touch them. And then, of course, you get up in the middle of the corner, accelerating all the way down the backstretch into the number 3 corner. And over there, I'm using a little bit of brake also, and then right back in the throttle and all the way off 4 here. But just about the time you get ready to really come off 4, you got to burp the throttle a little bit because it's a bridge in the racetrack there, and you just have to kind of line it up and take a straight shot down the front straightaway. And, of course, then it's back down the straightaway, and it's all over again.
Well, there you had it, the tape comments of Leroy Yarborough right now in car number 98 in second place in the race behind Bobby Allison. And there's another crash into that fourth turn, and again it's number 76, Ben Arnold, his second crash in a very short number of laps here. No yellow flag, however. The yellow flag has not gone out, so the race goes on.
Yeah. Arnold is the 13th driver to leave the race, Jim. Those out of the race include James Hilton, the top independent in NASCAR racing, and one of the big stars, Bobby Isaac, whose Dodge touched the fourth turn wall and upset the steering geometry.
And into the pits right now comes the leader, Bobby Allison, pitting on the green. Now, this could be a chance for Leroy Yarborough to get back on the same lap with him.
This should be his last stop of the race, Jim.
Okay, there's his pit crew. And out he goes. That was a quick one.
Very beautiful job in the pit.
But Leroy goes by before Bobby gets back out on the track. So Leroy Yarborough is now back on the same lap with the leader. And although he's a long way behind him, all it would take would be a yellow flag, an accident of some kind to give him an opportunity to close in. However, the laps are going by very quickly. There aren't many left.
You remember Leroy won the Daytona 500 on the very last lap in the same automobile, that Junior Johnson number 98 Mercury.
There is Leroy. Once again, remember, the white car, number 98. In third place is Cale Yarborough in this car, number 21, but he is 3 laps behind. The hometown favorite from nearby Timmonsville Hasn't given him too much to shout about today. He had bad luck with his tires early in the race. And there is number 99, Paul Goldsmith, who is in 4th position right now. That flag is once again for slower cars to move over and let the leaders go by. There's David Pearson. And there is a blown engine. That Richard Petty's car, now being driven by Donnie Allison, brother of the leader, has blown its engine and has dumped some oil and a few other things, it looks like, on this racetrack, and the yellow flag is out.
Boy, is this a break for Leroy Yarborough. This will enable him to close up behind Donnie Allison now, and there's a part on the track that'll have to be picked up before a tire's cut. We now have a brand new automobile race, Jim.
And there is the leader into the pit again on the yellow.
This is a surprising pit stop. He just stopped a few laps ago, and yet they're going to give him fresh outside tires.
Well, maybe they figure they got a little racing to do now with Leroy Yarborough on that pit stop, that second pit stop on the yellow this time by Allison. Leroy Yarborough now taking the lead in the race. Yarborough is the leader with the yellow flag out. Chris Economaki is moving down towards the Allison pits. There is Chris. Let's listen to him now with Mario Rossi.
Mario, why did you bring him in so late?
Well, we thought that possibly we'd have to race with Leroy for the last 15 laps or 16, whatever was left, and I felt like the new tires would give us an edge. Also, I feel that Leroy has to make a pit stop, otherwise he's going to go 103 miles, which I don't think is possible.
Suppose he doesn't have to make a pit stop. Can Bobby beat him?
That's hard to say right now. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. I think he can. If we've got, I'd say, another 8 or 9 laps to go.
Right. Mario Rossi, Bobby Allison's crew chief.
Well, there is Mario Rossi, a little bit worried right now, and the rest of the pit crew of Bobby Allison are waving furiously at the starter. Here they are. They want that green flag out so their man has a chance to pass Leroy Yarborough and beat him, even if Leroy does not have to make a pit stop. Not quite sure about that. But now they're going to be a little happier because they see Leroy Yarborough slowing down and heading into the pits. Leroy Yarborough is coming into the pits for a stop. He's got to make it. We are still under the yellow, however, and this is going to be very, very close. Here comes Leroy, car number 98, into the pit. And as he's in there, Allison just went by and has retaken the lead. So it's Allison first, Leroy Yarborough second, and we'll be back for the finish in a minute. They're about to get the green flag with 6 laps to go in the Rebel 400 at Darlington, South Carolina. Bobby Allison in his Dodge is still the leader, but he's only about no more than 50 yards ahead of Leroy Yarborough, who has closed in during all that business under the yellow flag. In between them, however, is car number 21. That's Cale Yarborough, who is actually 3 laps behind. So the first problem for Leroy is to get by Cale, right, Chris?
They've just given Pearson the move-over flag, Jim, but he doesn't appear to have seen it.
Both those drivers, of course, driving 1969 Mercuries, while Bobby Allison, the leader, is in a Dodge. Wild racing out there right now. Driver against driver, manufacturer against manufacturer, all sorts of encounters going on.
Checkered flag gets closer and closer, and the excitement builds here at Darlington.
And still the problem for Leroy is the same. Cale has not moved over as yet. I don't know why, because he got that signal from the pit. And it's still Cale Yarborough, 3 laps behind, in between the leader, Bobby Allison, and the second place car, Leroy Yarborough. And again, that move over sign was given to David Pearson, and again, he's not moving over.
He's a factor in this race right now. Oops, Allison goes high.
It's the leader against the wall, both leaders. And Allison and Leroy Yarborough hard up against that wall.
They're both going out of the race, Jim. Both cars, the number 1 and 2 cars.
Look out for Allison. He crashed into a concrete abutment there. Leroy Yarborough's car free of the abutment, as you see, coasting along. I don't know whether they'll be able to finish it or not. If he can't finish, if neither of them can finish, Cale could win the race. Here's the crash again. Up against the wall, the 2 lead cars, as you see. Had that been a lower wall, they might have gone right out of here, as Cale Yarborough did a few years ago. And again, you see him crashing into the abutment. But looking down, we see that Allison is out of the car. Miraculously, he seems to be okay. And into the pits now comes Leroy Yarborough. He has made it around. If they can straighten this car out and get it to finish another lap or 2, he's won the race. Let's look at this accident again now, Chris, in slow motion stop action.
Well, they came down in the first corner, and Allison went in high, hit that oil that was dropped by Petty's car, hit the rail. Cale went by on the underside, and then as he bounced off, Leroy just ticked him a little bit and got that number 98 Mercury sideways, but handled pretty well out of it as they continued down the banking. Then Leroy's car went up and rammed Allison into the fence a second time, purely accidental, of course. And here is where they started to change direction. Allison's car hits Yarborough's car, the right front corner there, and then down the track they come. It's a tough break for Allison as his car proceeded through the steel guardrail into the cement wall alongside the backstretch tunnel. Yarborough's car stalled for a moment, but he did get it going again.
And Leroy's car has been started. He's back out on the track, and here's the situation. If this battered and beat up 69 Mercury can make it around just this one lap, the race is all over. Under the yellow flag. Cale Yarborough here is in second place, but he's a full lap behind.
The smoke is coming from the bodywork rubbing against the right rear tire, Jim.
But it's still underway, still in motion. Just a matter now of hundreds of yards from the finish line, and Leroy Yarborough will wrap it up. Young man from Columbia, South Carolina. Now there's the white flag. That'll be given to Cale Yarborough. He still has one lap to go, you see. But the checkered is standing by for that car that has not yet quite won the race. Leroy just about making it. There he is, coming into the middle of your picture right now, that white car. He's got about 50 yards to limp through, and here he comes. The checkered flag is out. Leroy Yarborough has won the 1969 Rebel 400 at Darlington, South Carolina. We'll have a word with the winner in a minute. Leroy Yarborough, in his battered number 98 Mercury, has won the Rebel 400. Second place goes to Cale Yarborough, no relation, but also driving a Mercury. Third place to Paul Goldsmith in a Dodge, and Bobby Allison, who had been the leader, is placed fourth in his Dodge. And there is Bobby in the white coveralls with his back to you. Okay, physically okay, but very angry. Now let's go down to Chris.
Leroy Yarborough again in victory lane. We saw him in victory lane at Daytona. He made the lead on the last lap, and you took the lead on the last lap here. What happened up in that dramatic corner, Leroy?
I don't really know, Chris. I was running hard. They'd run it in, trying to make a run for it. We knew we had to run. And I was trying to get Cale out of my way, trying to get by him. And I actually went low, trying to get under Cale in this corner. And I'd seen Bobby up against the fence. And, of course, Cale went by, and then I tried to sneak by the bottom, and Bobby caught me in the door, spun me around when he came back across the racetrack. And, well, I spun around and came on in the pits and had to change my right side tires.
Leroy, the right side of your car is badly damaged. Was it a hard hit you got from him?
Oh, fairly hard.
Have you seen the car?
My car? No, I haven't had time yet.
Well, I think when you look at it, you'll remember that it's pretty hard hit. Congratulations, it's been a great day. How do you like winning them on the last lap like this?
Well, they pay just as much as they do winning them, leading them all the way, but this Mercury's tough. It'll take it.
Leroy Yarborough, the winner of the Rebel 400. And now, back to you, Jim McKay.
Thank you very much, Chris. Well, so it was on this beautiful May day in South Carolina, when it appeared that Bobby Allison was coasting to victory. An engine blew in a car driven ironically by his brother. That provided Leroy Yarborough with the brake he needed. Then came the crash against the wall, Allison definitely out of it, and Leroy now limping to victory here in the Rebel 400. This is Jim McKay reporting from Darlington. There's the moment that all of these drivers will remember all their racing careers, when Bobby Allison, who had it all wrapped up, crashed against the wall, and Leroy Yarborough went with him, but limped to that victory. The executive producer of ABC's Wide World of Sports is Roone Arledge. The coordinating producer, Jim Spence. Rebel 400 produced by Dick Kirchner. Roller skating produced by Doug Wilson. Big 8 track meet coverage produced by Ned Steckel. Our directors at Madison Square Garden, Mike Friedman, and at Ames, Iowa, William Bennington. The associate directors, Don Ohlmeyer and Jim Jeanette. Technical director at Madison Square Garden, Vern Hendrickson. Rebel 400 produced in association with the Triangle Race Film Team. Remember, tomorrow afternoon, the Colonial National Invitational Golf Championship, live and in color from Fort Worth, Texas, beginning at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time here on ABC. And next Saturday on ABC's Wide World of Sports, the World Light Heavyweight Championship fight between the champion, Bob Foster, and Andy Kendall. For now, this is Jim McKay, speaking also for Chris Economaki, saying so long from Darlington, South Carolina. Air travel arrangements for ABC's Wide World of Sports made through United Airlines, who also furnished promotional consideration. The program was pre-recorded.